The palace of Shalvir stood tall on a cliff made of crystal stone. It shined under the light of 3 moons. Inside its golden halls lived the royal family, proud and powerful. But in one quiet corner of the palace, far from music and laughter, sat a lonely figure, a princess no one wanted. Princess Aliva was born different. Her eyes were pale and couldn't see the colors of the world. Her legs were weak, making it hard for her to walk without help. From the moment she was born, the royal court whispered behind curtains. Some called her cursed, others said she was unfit to lead or love, but Aliva wasn't weak inside. She had a sharp mind and a heart full of dreams. She listened to music through the palace walls, learned old stories, and dreamed of flying ships. But most of all, she wished for someone to talk to her not out of duty, but out of kindness. Someone who wouldn't look at her with pity. As she grew older, the time came for her to bond. Bonding was sacred in her culture. It wasn't just marriage, it was a deep connection of hearts and minds. The 2 souls would become one, guided by trust. But year after year, no suitor stepped forward for Aliva. The royal family tried to hide the shame. They focused on her younger cousins, who were perfect in the eyes of tradition. Banquets were held, and nobles arrived with gifts, but never for her. Aliva would sit near the windows during those nights, feeling the music in her chest and wishing someone would dance with her on a different world. A young man named Logan had just finished his peacekeeping training. Tall, curious, and full of questions, Logan wasn't a soldier or scientist. He was just someone who wanted to explore and learn. When the Galactic Alliance called for volunteers to visit alien worlds and build peaceful ties, Logan's name was chosen. His first destination was Showard. The journey through space was long. Logan spent hours looking out the ship's window, wondering what kind of world he would see. He had heard stories about the royal family and their glowing cities. But no one told him about Aliva. When he landed, a grand welcome awaited. It filled the air. Strange glowing birds flew around. Nobles dressed in silk greeted him politely, but their smiles didn't feel real. Logan smiled anyway. He was used to being the outsider after a day of greetings and guided tours. Logan found himself alone in a quiet garden behind the palace. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted in blue and gold. He noticed a figure sitting near a small fountain. Her silver dress shined softly, and her face was turned toward the sound of the falling water. She looked calm, almost like part of the garden. Logan didn't know who she was, but something about her made him walk closer. "Hello," he said gently, not wanting to scare her. The girl turned her head slightly, her eyes not quite meeting his. "You're not from here," she said with a soft smile. "I'm not," Logan said. "I'm from Earth." "Earth," she repeated. "I've only heard about it in songs." Logan sat on the edge of the fountain, not too close. "About you? Do you live in the palace?" She nodded. "Yes, I'm part of the royal family. But don't worry, I'm not very important." Logan raised an eyebrow. "You don't sound unimportant," she chuckled lightly. "That's because you don't know who I am," Logan tilted his head. "Then tell me." "I'm Aliva," she said. "The blind and broken princess." He paused for a moment, then said, "You don't sound broken to me." Aliva didn't speak for a few seconds. She turned her face toward him, as if trying to see the truth in his voice. "You're the first person who said that," she whispered. They talked for a long time after that, about music, about stories, about stars. Aliva asked him about Earth's oceans, and he asked her about the moons of Shalvir. Time passed without them noticing. From behind a tree, one of the palace guards watched. He quickly sent a message to the queen, later that evening. The queen sat in her private chamber, holding a cup of warm blossom tea. The message from the guard lay on the table. "The human spoke with Aliva for over an hour, Your Highness." She laughed. They smiled. The queen looked out the window. Perhaps, just perhaps, something was changing meanwhile. Aliva sat by her window, fingers gently brushing the carved edge. She could still feel Logan's voice in her heart. It wasn't just his words, but the way he listened, for the first time. In many years, she didn't feel forgotten. And for the first time in his life, Logan had found someone who didn't judge him either. He didn't know why, but he felt drawn to her not because she was a princess, but because she was real. The stars outside the palace sparkled brighter than usual that night, and somewhere deep within the ancient halls, a bond began to form, quiet, gentle, and stronger than anyone could imagine. The next morning, Logan woke up early. Couldn't stop thinking about his talk with Aliva. There was something special about her. Not because she was a princess, but because she was honest. Her words didn't hide anything. She listened like no one else he had ever met after breakfast. Logan was given another tour by one of the royal guides, but his mind kept drifting back to the quiet garden. By the time the sun reached high, he asked politely, "Can I visit the garden again?" The guide looked surprised, but nodded. Of course, just follow the blue path. Logan thanked him and walked quickly, his heart hoping she would be there. Again, Aliva was already sitting by the fountain, just like before. Her hands rested on her lap, and her head turned slightly toward the sound of footsteps. When she heard his voice, a soft smile appeared on her face. "You came back," she said. "I did," he answered. "I wanted to see if you were here." Aliva smiled wider. "Most people don't come back. Then they're missing something important," Logan said as he sat down. They talked again about their favorite smells, sounds, and stories. Aliva described how she imagined the stars by listening to songs about them. Logan tried to explain the deep blue color of Earth's oceans. They laughed when he failed to describe the smell of chocolate. As they spoke, palace staff passed by and whispered, no one had seen Aliva this happy in years. One older maid wiped a tear from her cheek. She remembered Aliva as a child, crying quietly in the corners where no one looked. But now, Aliva laughed. That evening, the queen called a private meeting. Her advisors were waiting. A large round table filled the room, and soft lights hung above. "The human," she began, "has spoken with Aliva again." For hours, few advisors exchanged glances. "One spoke with care, Your Majesty. We should be cautious. The princess is not strong." "The bonding tradition." "I know the tradition," the queen said sharply. "But I also know my daughter. This is the first time she has smiled in years." A younger advisor leaned forward. "Do you think the human intends to bond with her?" The queen didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I don't know. But if he does, I will not stop him." Gasps filled the room. "Your Highness, bonding with a human? It's never been done." "Then maybe it's time something new begins," the queen said. Meanwhile, Logan and Aliva sat in the garden long after the sky turned dark. Small lights floated above, glowing gently. Aliva turned her head and asked, "Logan, do you think I'm strange?" He paused. "No. I think you're strong and smart and maybe a little funny." She giggled. "Funny? Yes. You made me laugh 4 times today." Aliva smiled and lowered her head. "No one ever says that. They see my eyes or my legs and they decide everything else doesn't matter. And they're not really seeing you," Logan said softly. Silence grew between them, but it wasn't heavy. It felt peaceful. Aliva broke the quiet. "Logan, do humans bond the same way we do?" "No," he said, "not exactly. We fall in love in different ways, but we do value connection, honesty, trust." She nodded slowly. "Out here bonding is sacred. It's more than love. It's a promise made with the heart and the mind. Only 2 souls who truly understand each other can complete it." Logan looked at her. "And have you ever felt close to that?" "Only once," she whispered. "Now?" Logan blinked, unsure what to say. Part of him felt surprised, but another part felt something warm grow inside his chest. "I don't know if we could bond," he said slowly, "but I'd like to understand. I'd like to try." Aliva's eyes filled with quiet hope.
All of us.
"If I'm different?" Logan reached out gently and placed his hand near hers. "You're not different to me. You're Aliva." Their hands touched, not forced, just softly resting. Suddenly a warm glow shimmered around their fingers. Aliva gasped. "That's the first sign of a bond," she said. Logan looked at the light, amazed. "What does it mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "our hearts are speaking. From a hidden part of the garden, an old priestess watched with wide eyes. She turned and walked quickly to the temple. Later that night, the queen stood before the ancient bonding council. The elder priestess told them what she saw. A bond light formed between the human and the princess, she said. True and clear, the council argued for hours. Some refused to believe it, others called it a mistake. But the queen raised her hand. No one else ever tried to bond with my daughter. But this human did. He didn't see weakness, he saw strength. The priestess looked at them all. And the bond does not lie. The next morning, Logan was invited to the temple. He was confused, but followed the royal guards. The temple stood on a high hill, glowing with soft lights and ancient runes. Inside, the council and the queen waited. Ailey VA was there too. Dressed in white silk, her fingers trembling slightly. The queen spoke kindly. Logan of Earth, you have shown my daughter what others never did care and respect. Do you wish to learn our bond ways? Logan looked at Aliva, then at the queen. Aliva smiled, her hand reaching out. Then let's begin. As they stood together before the ancient altar, something ancient stirred in the air two souls meeting. In a world that never expected them to find each other, the temple of bonding was quiet as the morning sun slowly rose behind the silver mountains. Soft lights danced along the carved walls, and the floor was warm beneath their feet. Logan stood beside Princess Aliva, still unsure of everything, but sure of one thing he wanted to try. The high priestess stepped forward, her long robes brushing against the floor. To begin the path of bonding, she said, you must complete the 3 trials: truth, fear, and unity. Only then will the bond be accepted by our spirits. Logan glanced at Aliva. She gave a small nod. She was nervous too, but calm. Do it together, she whispered. The first trial was the trial of truth. They were brought into a quiet chamber with a glowing orb floating in the middle. The priestess spoke. The orb will sense lies. Speak your truth aloud, even the ones you try to hide. Logan took a deep breath. I'm not a hero, he said. I came here as a peace worker. I never thought I'd meet someone like Aliva. I don't know if I deserve her bond, but I care about her. More than I expected, Aliva stepped forward next. I always believed no one would ever love me. I told myself I didn't need anyone. But when Logan spoke to me, I felt something I never felt before. I don't know what will happen next, but I want to find out with him. The orb glowed bright blue. The priestess nodded. Truth accepted. Outside the chamber, a group of nobles stood watching. Many were angry. One older noble, Lord Koresh, whispered this should not be allowed. A human bonding with royalty? It's disgraceful. We must stop this before the trials end, another added. But inside the temple, the bond between Logan and Aliva grew stronger. The second trial was the trial of fear. They were led to an underground garden once used by ancient royals to train their spirits. They were told nothing, only to wait. Minutes passed in silence. Then a loud growl echoed through the cave. A beast large, shadowy, and with glowing yellow eyes stepped from the trees. It wasn't real, but made of spiritual energy. It felt real. Its presence was heavy. Its growl shook the floor. Logan stepped in front of Aliva, hands out. Stay behind me, he said. No, Aliva whispered, reaching out and holding his arm. We face it together. The beast rushed toward them. Logan didn't move. Aliva stood firm beside him. They didn't run. They didn't scream. They stood together, hearts steady. The beast stopped and slowly faded into light. The priestess appeared again, fear-faced. You stood as one. As they walked back to the temple's main hall, Aliva leaned on Logan just a little. You weren't afraid? She asked. I was, he smiled. But you held my arm, and that made all the difference. The final trial was the trial of unity. They were taken to the bond chamber, a round room filled with stars above and water. Below, the air felt heavy with ancient power. This trial tests your connection, the priestess said. You must move together, speak together, and listen without sound. Complete the path without breaking the link between your hands. A long, narrow bridge stretched across the water. If either of them slipped, the trial would end. Logan and Aliva held hands and stepped onto the bridge. It moved slightly under their weight. Small lights appeared ahead, showing turns and steps. Left Aliva whispered. Logan followed. Your hearing is amazing. Your eyes don't work, she said softly. Your ears become your guide. They moved slowly, carefully. At one point, Aliva lost her balance. Logan tightened his grip and stopped her fall. When Logan missed a step, Aliva pulled him back with gentle strength. They reached the other side together. Hand in hand, never letting go, the water below glowed. Stars above brightened. The priestess smiled. Unity complete. As the bond trials ended, the temple filled with song. The high priestess held her arms out. The bond is forming. Two hearts from different worlds, now joined in trust and respect. Logan and Aliva stood in the center of the chamber. A soft glow circled around them, rising slowly and forming a ring of light. The bond was not yet complete, but the path had opened. Outside the temple, nobles grew restless. Lord Koresh gathered others. If we don't act now, that human will become prince, he said with anger. Our traditions will be broken forever, but the people are watching, one noble warned. If we act too soon, we may lose their trust. Then we act from the shadows, Koresh whispered. Inside the palace, the queen sat in silence, watching the skies from her window. She had seen her daughter grow through pain and silence. Now, Aliva stood taller. She laughed, smiled, and it was because of that one human who didn't look away. Perhaps. The queen said softly, this bond is what our world needed all along. Later that night, Aliva sat by her window, holding a crystal given to her by the temple. It pulsed, gently showing that the bond between her and Logan was growing stronger each moment. Logan stood beside her. Tired a little, she said, but also light. Like I'm finally free. You are, he said, and I'm here, not going anywhere. Aliva turned her head toward him. She couldn't see his face, but she could hear the truth in his voice. Thank you, Logan, she whispered, for choosing to see me. And in that soft night, filled with stars and old songs, two hearts from different worlds beat in quiet, harmony ready to face whatever came next. The palace was buzzing with quiet talk. Servants passed messages from room to room. Guards stood alert near hidden doors. Everyone knew something was happening, but no one said it out loud. Princess Aliva had completed the bond trials. Not with a noble suitor from their own kind, but with a human, foreigner, someone the court had once seen as nothing more than a guest. Inside the queen's chamber, a royal advisor whispered, Your Majesty, the nobles are gathering. They are unhappy. The queen looked at him calmly. They were unhappy when Aliva was born. They were unhappy when no suitor came for her. Now they are unhappy again, because someone finally did. The advisor bowed and left. The queen turned to the window and saw her daughter in the garden below. Aliva was smiling, her hand in Logan's. For the first time, she looked like someone truly alive. Let them whisper, the queen said to herself. They cannot stop what's real. But deep in the palace, behind a sealed door, Lord Koresh and 4 nobles stood around a table. They were not whispering, they were planning. If the bond completes, Koresh said, the human becomes part of the royal line. He'll have power, say in our council, and others will follow. Rules will break. They all agreed. We must stop it. But one of them hesitated. She's happy, truly. We've never seen her like this. Koresh's eyes narrowed. This is not about happiness, it's about tradition. While they plotted, Logan and Aliva walked through the palace gardens. The sun was warm. Flowers moved gently in the breeze. Aliva held Logan's hand as they moved along the path. You've learned our steps quickly, Aliva said with a small smile. I had a good teacher, Logan replied. I wish I could see your world, she said softly. Earth sounds strange. And full of noise? It is, he nodded. But I think you'd like it. We have trees that sing when the wind moves through them. I'd like to hear that. They sat on a bench near a glowing tree. Its leaves shimmered like silver coins. Aliva reached out and touched its bark. Double quotes Logan, she said slowly. Do you ever think this? Us? Is too strange? Logan looked at her. Sometimes, but strange doesn't mean wrong. It means new. And I like new. Aliva smiled. So, do I? That evening, a formal feast was held. It was meant to celebrate the trials, but most nobles came only to watch, to judge, to wait for a mistake. Logan wore the traditional robe of Shalvier. Aliva stood beside him, holding his arm. When they entered the grand hall, the music stopped for a moment, then started again slow and tense. Whispers moved through the room like wind. Why him, a human? Unworthy. What? But Aliva stood. Tall, she couldn't see the faces, but she could feel the stares. Logan leaned close. You're doing great. They're afraid, she whispered. Not of me, of change. The queen raised her hand and stood. Knight, she said. We celebrate not just the bond trials, but a new path. My daughter has found what none of us expected. A true connection. A few nobles clapped politely. Others stayed silent. Koresh narrowed his eyes. Later that night, after the feast, Aliva and Logan returned to her private chamber. She removed her earrings and sat by the soft, glowing wall. It's strange, she said. I used to dream of this room being empty forever. Now I don't want to be alone in it. Logan sat beside her. You won't be. She took his hand. Soon, the bond will complete. It will be forever. Are you ready? Logan nodded. Never been more ready. But while they sat in peace, Koresh moved through the shadows of the palace. He had paid a group of loyal guards ones who still followed the old ways. That night they would make their move. Before dawn, footsteps echoed in the silent hallway. 3 armored figures reached the princess's door. They moved quietly, with sharp tools in hand. But the bond had grown strong. Logan woke with a strange feeling in his chest. Not pain warning. He touched Aliva's shoulder. She sat up at once. What is it? She asked. I don't know, he said, but something's wrong. She placed her hand over his heart. I can feel it too. Someone's coming. Hey. Moved quickly. Logan helped her stand, and they opened a secret passage behind the curtain, a path Aliva knew well from her childhood. As the intruders entered the room, they found it empty. Logan and Aliva ran through the tunnel, reaching a guard station. There they alerted the queen's personal protector, a loyal captain, who had watched Aliva grow up. The alarm was raised. The intruders were caught within minutes. One tried to escape, but was stopped by a wall of guards. When the masks were removed, the queen saw their faces, and her expression grew cold. Koresh, she whispered. The next day, Koresh and his allies were brought before the High Council. Their crimes were read aloud: attempted harm to the royal heir and betrayal of peace. The people of Shalvier heard the news. Many were shocked. Some were angry. But many, for the first time, saw the truth. Aliva had been right all along. The human had stood beside her, not for power, but for love, as the sun rose again. The queen stood before the people and declared, the bond between Aliva and Logan will be completed at dawn. All who wish to witness the beginning of a new chapter are welcome. And in the city of crystal and stars, the people gathered with quiet hope. The sky above Shalvier turned soft blue as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. The city below was silent, holding its breath. The bonding ceremony had been announced. For the first time in history, a human and a royal heir of Shalvier would join their spirits. In the Temple of Light, the sacred hall had been prepared. Glowing flowers lined the stone path. Soft music echoed through the crystal walls. The air was warm, full of ancient energy. Princess Aliva stood inside her private chamber, dressed in a long silver gown. Her white hair was braided with gentle blue threads, a symbol of unity. 2 royal servants stood nearby, their hands trembling slightly. Aliva took a breath. Is he here? Yes, princess, one answered with a kind smile. We waits at the center of the hall. Aliva nodded. She placed a hand on the crystal necklace around her neck, the one Logan had given her after the first trial. It pulsed faintly with warmth. Their bond had already begun to glow. Now it would become something unbreakable. Across the hall, Logan stood dressed in Shalvier robes. They felt strange on him, but right. He looked around, heart beating fast. The hall was full of watchers. Nobles, guards, common citizens, even children, sat quietly waiting to see what would happen. But Logan saw only one person, Aliva, walking slowly toward him with her cane and her calm, beautiful smile. Each step she took was a message to the world. She didn't need to be saved. She chose her own path. As she reached him, Logan stepped forward and held out his hand. She took it, and together they turned to face the High Priestess. Today, the priestess spoke, we witnessed the completion of a sacred bond, not of blood or race, but of heart and choice. These two souls have passed the trials. They have faced truth, fear, and unity. They offer themselves to each other in trust. Aliva and Logan knelt before a glowing pool. The priestess held two small stones, one blue, one white. She placed them in their hands. Drop your stone, she said, if your spirit agrees. Logan and Aliva looked at each other. No words were needed. Their hands moved at the same time. Both stones dropped into the pool. Light burst upward, gentle but bright. It danced above them, forming a circle of glowing mist. The bond is accepted, the priestess announced. The crowd stayed quiet for a moment, then clapped. Not just polite applause, but real warm celebration, but in the back of the hall not. Everyone was pleased. A few nobles who had followed Koresh watched in silence. They had failed to stop the bond, and now they feared what would come next. Change was coming. They could no longer hold it back. After the ceremony, Logan and Aliva were taken to the royal garden. They were under a sky filled with soft gold light. They stood before the queen. The queen placed a hand on Aliva's shoulder. My daughter, she said softly, you have done something I could never do. Made this world look beyond its old ways. Aliva smiled. I didn't do it alone. The queen looked at Logan. And you, human. You saw her, not her title, not her condition, but her spirit. For that, you have my respect. Logan bowed slightly. Thank you, Your Majesty. As the sun rose higher, people gathered in the city square. News spread quickly. Artists painted the scene of the bonding with glowing colors. Musicians played new songs. Children danced in the streets. Alivo's name was no longer spoken with pity, but with pride. In the days that followed, something changed across Shalvier. Young citizens who once hid their differences stepped forward. A girl born with no voice became a singer through soundlight. A boy with one arm designed flying machines. People began to believe that strength came in many shapes, and all of it had started because a blind princess and a human stranger chose each. Together, Logan spent his days learning the history of Shalvier and helping in the healing halls. Aliva spent her time teaching the young, sharing stories, and showing others how to find their own voice. They still walked the garden together every evening. Aliva said the fountain sounded even more beautiful now. Logan believed her. One evening, while sitting under the silver tree, Logan said, I used to think I'd visit worlds, learn their history, then move on. I never thought I'd find a home. Aliva touched his hand. And I never thought someone from the stars would hold my hand and mean it. They both laughed quietly. What happens next? Logan asked. We live, Aliva said. We grow. And we show the world that love isn't about perfect bodies or powerful names. It's about choosing each other every day. Logan nodded. Then I choose you. Every day. Aliva smiled and leaned her head against his shoulder. And far above them, the stars shone brighter than ever, as if they too had chosen to witness something rare and beautiful. Seasons passed over the shining towers of Shalvier. Soft snow came and melted. Golden leaves danced in the wind. And in the middle of the city, the story of a blind princess and the human who bonded with her became more than just Nusit. Became a legend. Aliva and Logan had now lived many months together. not just as bonded souls, but as partners in work, peace, and dreams. Aliva helped reform the bonding laws. She stood before the council and told them, if bonding is truly sacred, then it must welcome any heart that understands another. And slowly, old rules began to change. Logan worked with builders and thinkers from Earth and Shalvir. Together, they created a learning center where young ones from both worlds could study side by side. He helped a child from the Outer Rings build her first sky drone. He shared Earth food with shy nobles who had never tasted anything beyond their customs. People came from other planets to see them. Some were curious, some were doubtful. But after spending just one day watching how Aliva and Logan spoke to each other, listened, and laughed, they understood one morning. Aliva stood on the highest balcony of the palace, feeling the wind in. Her hair, her cane rested by her side. Logan stood next to her, holding a small letter in his hand. It's from Earth, he said. The Peace Council wants us to speak at the summit. Both of us, Aliva asked. Yes, they want to hear about our bond, about how trust was built between two very different lives. Aliva smiled. I never thought I would stand in front of leaders from across the galaxy. Logan looked at her. They need to hear your voice, just like I did. Later that week, they boarded a silver skyship and flew to the summit, held on a quiet moon between systems. Leaders, diplomats, and scholars from many species sat in a great circular room. The floor glowed with light and the air was filled. With quiet tension, Ailey was helped to the center. Her hand rested on Logan's arm. When she began to speak, the entire hall fell silent. When I was young, she said, I was told I would never bond, and I was too broken, too different. I believed them. I stayed quiet. I listened to music alone and dreamed alone. She paused. But then came a voice, a human voice that didn't speak with pity. It spoke with kindness, curiosity, respect, and that voice changed my world. Logan stepped beside her. I didn't know what to expect when I came to Shalvir. I found stars, yes, but more than that, I found Aliva. It's not a weak princess, but the strongest person I've ever met, Aliva continued. True bonding is not about perfect sight or perfect strength. It is about truth, about standing beside someone not above them. When she finished, the room stayed silent for several seconds. Then one by one, leaders stood and clapped. Soon the whole chamber filled with warm applause. A voice from a far corner whispered, May more bonds be like theirs. After the summit, things began to shift across the stars in the following weeks. 3 other alien worlds opened their bonding laws to include outsiders. Schools named buildings after Aliva. Stories were told to children not about wars or kings, but about the princess who was never supposed to be chosen, and the human who chose her anyway. One evening, Aliva and Logan returned to the palace, tired but happy. They sat by the old fountain in the garden, the same place where they first met. Do you remember the first thing you said to me? She asked. Logan laughed. I think it was just, hello, it was, she smiled, but it was the first real hello I ever got. They sat quietly, letting the sound of water fill the space. Do you think we changed anything? Logan asked softly. Aliva didn't answer right away. Then she said we changed everything. Then not long after, she had grown older, her steps slower, but her eyes proud. You've given our people something more powerful than law, she said. You gave them hope. Aliva held the queen's hand gently. And you gave us the chance. The next day, a great festival was held in the city center. Glowing sails filled the sky. People wore colors from every planet. Laughter echoed from streets, rooftops, and windows, in the middle of it all. Aliva and Logan stood together, watching dancers spin and children run. One little girl with a limp walked up to Aliva and asked, Can someone like me be a leader? To Aliva knelt beside her. Yes, someone like you already is. The girl smiled and ran back to her group. Logan turned to Aliva. You're changing the meaning of what it means to lead. No, she said. We are. As the stars rose that night, the skies above Shalvir lit up with light. Not from warships or weapons, but from ships of peace, carrying guests, stories, and dreams. And at the center of it all, a princess once left in the shadows now stood in the light, never alone again. The bond between human and alien had once been a rare story. Now it was a path.